Now, crossing stateside, a landmark ruling in the US means the Federal Reserve must reveal which firms it's given emergency loans to. It'll be the first time America's money machine is forced to be transparent when it comes to splashing the cash. Well, for more, let's go live to RT's Alyona Minkowski. He's in Washington for us. Alyona, over to you.
Thank you. Well, this isn't the only Freedom of Information Act lawsuit that was filed against the Federal Reserve, but it's the first one that finally worked. And now they're going to have to say just who they gave that emergency money to and exactly how much they got, which is making the banks very scared. They're worried that the American people, who essentially became involuntary investors in the banks because of the bailouts, are going to take all their money out of the accounts and run if they think that those banks are in trouble. Now, some people say that maybe this is exactly what they deserve. But also, could this cause a panic that isn't going to do any good for an already suffering economy? Well, here to discuss with me just what this case might mean is legal analyst Nicole Cardell. Nicole, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Alyona.
So I first just want to know, why did this case finally work? You know, the other ones that were filed did not get passed, and here they won.
Well, the federal judge in this particular case didn't buy the Fed's argument that this information would be exempted from public disclosure. The Fed had argued that this was information that was privileged information of the borrowers that were borrowing money from the banks and would lead them to a competitive disadvantage if it were disclosed. The judge said that the documents that were at issue were actually created by the Fed and didn't buy the argument that this would lead to a competitive disadvantage. But can they still appeal this case? After all, the judge only gave them 5 days to disclose all the information, right? I believe the way the federal law comes out on this one is that a party in a case has 10 days to request a stay of a particular judge's order. So they've got that timeline. I know that doesn't really work out with a 5-day order here, but that's what federal law is. And then they've got another 60 days or some to file notice of appeal at the next level of court, which is the Second Circuit. Now, I'd like to point out that it's a victory, but it's really only a small victory for the 75% of Americans that want disclosure of what's going on at the Federal Reserve, because if this case does get appealed, and I imagine it will, it could take months for the next court to make a decision on it. And if it gets appealed up to the Supreme Court, it could take years. And at that point, the information that the media outlet is requesting to disclose could become valueless. Now, aside from the timing, are they supposed to disclose all of the information to who got every little bit of money? Well, that's another reason why it's actually a small victory, because the judge's opinion was pretty narrow in scope. She focused on some information from a few reports that were prepared by the Federal, or on behalf of the Federal Reserve Board from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So it's not, and she actually didn't make a decision on whether or not Federal Reserve banks were agencies of the Federal Reserve Board, which is a pretty important point to hammer out. But now, let's say that they do have to disclose all this information, and it does happen quickly. Do you think that there might be some kind of panic amongst people taking all their money out of their bank accounts? Well, the judge had made a point on whether or not this could be problematic, and she said, look, this is part of the risk of market participation if you potentially look weak. I think it's pretty paternalistic of the Fed, Bernanke, and others who don't want to have this information disclosed to the public, because we're going to be bearing the brunt of the cost of what the Fed's doing in the long run. Well, thanks, Nicole, and we will continue to follow this as we see whether the information is disclosed soon or whether they just might appeal and continue this long process. Back to you in Moscow, Alice.
All right, many thanks to you, Alyona Minkowski, and your guest for that debate from Washington.